This video will show you how to replace the front brakes, pads and rotors on a Mitsubishi Outlander. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front end of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After completing that, to remove the wheel, remove all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts. Now we can get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of our front brakes. Let's start at the caliper. So to push back our caliper piston, which is located in this area, to easily do this, I'm just using a small pry bar. I'm going in through this square notch on the caliper. I'm trying to find where the rotor is, then I'm going to pry up against it and pull the caliper outward. That's going to push the piston inward. Now once you have movement from that, we can continue on to our 2 caliper slider pins. As far as the hardware, I'm using a 14mm for each slider pin. I'm going to fully remove the first one. I'll give it a quick inspection, but I like to start it back in. After that, we'll move along to the second. This will help prevent it from falling while we continue on. We will be cleaning and re-lubricating this. For now, let's just go ahead and slide it in and we'll continue on. Slide that out of there. As you remove your 2 slider pins, you're going to find that they do look a little different than the other. The lower one will not have a rubber vibration dampener. The upper slider pin does have a rubber vibration dampener. Just pay attention to that so you can reinstall them in the proper area. Now we can slide this out of position. We'll just give it a quick inspection, confirm that the piston is pushed in and it's not leaking, and we're going to hang it aside, putting no pressure on our flex hose. I just have a small caliper hook for that. Continuing on, you want to remove each one of your 2 brake pads. Typically, these will slide out of place fairly easily, but you can use a small prying device if necessary. When I do remove these, even though I'm replacing them, I like to give them a thorough inspection, see if they're worn at an angle. If they are worn at an angle, you might have had an issue with a slider pin, or possibly the pads were stuck in the bracket. It's time to remove our 2 caliper bracket mounting bolts next. For each of these, we're using a 17mm. Same process as with the slider pins. There's the first one. Now I'll move along to the next. We'll take hold of the bracket so it does not fall down while we remove that mounting bolt. A quick inspection of this. We will be cleaning and lubricating it. For now, we'll set it aside. Now we're moving along to removing the brake rotor itself. It's common for these to be stuck in place. If that is the case, use one of your original lug nuts. We're going to start it on a couple threads. Now with that in place, we're going to tap on the brake rotor. Attempting to break it free from the wheel bearing located behind it, just be extremely careful not to cause any damage to the bearing. This lug nut will prevent it from falling off and potentially hurting us. Let's remove that lug nut. And now we can remove the brake rotor. There it is, friend. Now, prior to installing our brake rotor, the next thing we have to do is clean and inspect the wheel bearing hub mating surface. This is where the brand new brake rotor will sit against. It needs to be clean and free of any debris so you don't have a brake pulsation. For this, I'm just using a small sanding disc. You can also use sandpaper or even a wire brush, whatever's easiest for you. Now, as you can tell, I've cleaned the majority of the flat surface, but I still have to clean in between my lug studs and the center circle area of the hub. I'm going to use my wire brush. Obviously, it's your vehicle. Clean it as well as you deem fit. Now, after cleaning that, I'm going to make my way along the back side of the wheel bearing. We want to pay attention at that backing plate. Remove any miscellaneous debris. If you have rust deposits back there, it might fall inside the brand new brakes. Now we'll just give it a quick rinse with some parts cleaner. Of course, we have our collection receptacle under this area. A close inspection for any raised areas. This looks good. For good measure, some anti-seize. Now it's time to install the brand new front brake rotor. The first thing I would mention is you want to pay attention to the rotor braking surface. If it has any type of oils on it, you need to clean it. This type of rotor is coated. I do not need to clean it with any type of parts cleaner. So I'm going to install it on the wheel bearing. I'll make sure it's held in place using one of my original lug nuts and a spacer. That will prevent this from moving or falling off while we continue on. Now we're focusing on the caliper bracket. The first thing we'll do for the caliper bracket is remove our caliper bracket tins. You're going to find that your brake pad kit came with new tins. We will be recycling these. I'm just going to set them aside for now. After removing each of those, remove your slider pin protective boots. As far as these are concerned, unless you're planning on replacing them, be extremely careful not to cause any damage. They may be stuck in the caliper bracket. We can carefully work them out of position. You can use a small screwdriver or even a pick. Just as I mentioned, be careful not to cause any damage. Now, as far as the caliper slider pin boots, we're going to clean and inspect these first. I like to use a rag. I'm going to give it a twist, and then I'm going to slide it through the pin boot all the way to the far end. Now, as I slide this through, I'm going to take the boot and I'm just going to roll it around on that rag. I'm attempting to remove any miscellaneous debris or lubricant from inside of that. Once I've cleaned it, a thorough inspection to confirm it's not torn, worn, or damaged in any way. This boot does look good. Go ahead and repeat the process for the other boot, and we'll continue on. Both boots are the same. You do not need to worry about mixing these up. For now, I'm going to set these aside. At this point, we've removed everything from our caliper bracket. It's time to do some cleaning. We're going to start along each side of the caliper bracket where the caliper bracket tins would be. You can clean this using a wire brush, some sandpaper, or even continue on with your sanding disc, whatever's easiest for you. I'm making sure there's no raised areas. Any raised areas could potentially cause an issue with the brake pads getting stuck, and that's going to cause premature brake wear. This side of the caliper bracket does look good as far as the caliper bracket tins are concerned. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and we'll continue on with our caliper slider pin ports next. At this point, to clean the caliper bracket slider pin ports, I have it in a collection receptacle. I'm going to be using parts cleaner directly inside of the port. When I spray in, it's possible it comes back out. Of course, at all times, we have hand and eye protection. To clean this out, I'm using a bore brush. Of course, a quick rinse. And a thorough inspection to confirm there's no miscellaneous debris. That port looks good, I'll continue on. After cleaning the caliper bracket, let's pay attention to our two caliper slider pins. We'll wipe these down. One thing I would mention about cleaning the caliper slider pins, if you have a rubber vibration dampener, you don't want to use parts cleaner. It could cause it to swell and cause damage. Just wipe it down, give it a thorough inspection, make sure there's no rot or damage which might restrict the ability for this to move as it needs to. That does look good, so I'm just going to clean the other slider pin, same process, a quick wipe. Looking at them next to each other, you can tell that one does have a vibration dampener, the other does not, as we know. These look good, so let's set them aside and we'll focus on that bracket again. We have some silicone paste. I'm lubricating along the caliper bracket where I had sanded. This is where the caliper bracket tins would be. By adding lubricant here, it helps prevent moisture buildup. Of course, we'll do the same thing on the other side of the bracket. As you install those tins, just double check to make sure they're secured. They should not fall off as you continue on. This does look good, so now let's pay attention to our two caliper slider pin ports. As far as those ports are concerned, we don't need very much lubricant, but we are going inside of this area first, directly inside the port, and all the way up along this outer edge. Continuing on, we have our slider pin boots. We want to make sure that we carefully install these and make sure they are secured. I'm pressing it in. I'll give it a twist. I'm working in that lubricant so no debris can make its way inside of this area once everything's installed. Now this side does look good. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the other slider pin port next. All right, this bracket's prepared. Let's get it over to the vehicle. Back over at the vehicle, before we install our caliper bracket, let's have a quick look at the caliper itself. We're paying attention to the caliper piston. We want to make sure it is pushed all the way in. If it is not, you can continue on with a caliper compression tool. We would want to put this in place and then just go ahead and gently squeeze until it's all the way in. After you've done that, we're going to use high temperature caliper lubricant along our caliper piston and along the backside of each of these two ears. This is going to help with vibration dampening and noise reduction overall. Now we can install our caliper bracket. We'll make sure we have it in the proper orientation. We'll slide it over the brake rotor and continue on with our two caliper bracket bolts along the backside. As far as our two caliper bracket bolts, we want to make sure we start both of them in first. Now that I have my hardware started in, I'm going to snug it up and then torque it to 81 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure your bracket's secured in place. Now it's time for our brake pads. Looking at your kit, you're going to find it came with 4 of the same brake pads. We'll take one of those brake pads, and on the inboard pad, we need to install a wear indicator. Now, since I'm on the driver's side, I'm going to be installing my wear indicator down along the bottom area here. As far as the wear indicator, just line it up with the brake pad and slide it into position. Press it on. That's what it should look like right there. Double check to make sure it's secured. We do not want this falling off while you're driving down the road. Now to install the brake pad, go ahead and rest it in a position. It's going into those caliper bracket tins. As we press it in, you should not have to use a hammer to drive it in. You want to make sure it can move. If you have to hammer it in or press very hard, more than likely you did not clean the caliper bracket well enough and you need to do so. Now it's time for the outboard pad. The outboard pad will not have a wear indicator. Line it up, press it in. And of course, make sure it can move freely. Continuing on, we're going to apply high temperature caliper lubricant to each one of our 2 caliper slider pins. We're lubricating the entire smooth shafted area all the way up into the groove closest to where that threaded portion of the slider pin is. Do the same for both. Now let's get ready to install that caliper. As we bring the caliper over our brake pads, we're confirming that we slide it over our caliper slider pin boots as well. We don't want to cause any damage here. Now, before we install our caliper slider pins, pay attention to your brake flex hose. We want to make sure it's not twisted in a way that might restrict brake fluid flow. That's going to cause a braking issue. This is how it's supposed to look, so let's continue on with our slider pins. As for the slider pins, the one with the vibration dampener is going right up along the top. Line it up, slide it in, start it in by hand. Lower pin does not have a vibration dampener. After you have them both started in, go ahead and snug them up and then torque them to 36 foot-pounds. Got my torque wrench. Double check to make sure that's secured as well. Now looking along this area, we can remove our lug nut and our spacer. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, we'll continue on to all 5 of our 21mm headed lug nuts. We're going to start them on. We'll bottom them out in a crisscross manner. We'll get the wheel back on the ground and torque them to 80 foot-pounds. Now I've got my wheel back on the ground. I'm torquing each one of my 21mm lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. I've got my torque wrench. Torqued. Okay friend, we showed you how to install the front brakes on one side of the vehicle. The process for one side is the exact same thing as the other. Now once you've completed both side brakes, make your way inside the passenger compartment, pump up the brake pedal till it's nice and firm, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.